Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this afternoon's session. I'm Nick Goddard from the Australian Oilseeds Federation, and it's my absolute pleasure to host this next session. And we have with us in the studio, as we say, Rob van Steldenen from MP Commodities in the Netherlands. So Rob is a principal of a broking firm based in the Netherlands and specialising in the trading of and brokering of grain and other similar commodities. So my absolute pleasure to welcome you, Rob.
Thank you for the introduction, Nick. My name is Rob van Steldenen. I'm one of the owners of MP Commodities. We are a broker for a company close to Rotterdam. The three of us broker mainly grains in all through Europe, but we also source, as you just said, in Australia, especially lupins, dunpies, and some canola. We do around 1 million ton a year in the Netherlands. It's mainly wheat, corn, barley, and rye, oats. We trade between the trading companies, the feed compound industry.
Okay, excellent. Well, we'll cover a broad range of topics today, but all related to European trade in canola, because that's basically the heart and soul of the WA canola industry. So just looking at the EU production at this stage for rapeseed, we've seen pretty much year-on-year decline over the last recent years for the EU rape crop. A little bit of an uptick this year, which is good. But can you just outline what these key drivers might have been that's led to sort of a year-on-year decline in EU rape production?
It's a combination, Nick, of various factors. First of all, rape seeds are grown all through Europe, but we have problems sometimes in winter. We have winter kill problems. But at the end of the day, it's a money-driven factor. Other grains simply give more money per square meter for the farmer. So, and the rapeseed itself growing is one thing, but it's the oil price at the end of the day, plus the meal at the end of the day. And there's a lot more competition nowadays in the meal industry. We have more sunflower meal in the market. There's more DDGS in the market. So the need for rape meal, it's there, but it's more of a combination. You have to see it. You can't say from one thing to the other, oh, farmers shift to something else. They shift to something else for mainly because of money. Simple thing.
So, or underpinning that, I guess, are the climatic conditions that you've experienced the last couple of seasons, been very, very hot and dry for rapeseed, and also
right.
we get the signals that the ban on neonicotinoids has really impacted the ability of growers to maximise the yield because they really can't spray. Is that something that's a real thing? Is that a driver, or is it more just the economics that you've outlined?
It's the economic outline at the end of the day.
Okay, interesting. Well, on that basis, then let's have a look at the GM and non-GM situation, because obviously Australia's had a strong share of the EU imports for a number of years, and our ability to supply, Australia's ability to supply non-GM has been a key driver behind that. That is until the Canadians started to muscle in and take some of our space. So the Canadians have been quite successful in bringing quite a bit of GM canola into Europe. So I'm just wondering what the change has been in Europe to enable the acceptance of more GM canola or rape into the biodiesel sector. It's obviously got to do with the glycerin and the meal opportunities, but why is, what do you see as being the change cause?
Yeah, it's the change cause is also, again, the various factors. First of all, countries in Europe have their own rules with GM and non-GMO. Non-GMO will always be a driver for a higher price. If a non-GMO rapeseeds are used, so the non-GMO rape meal is there, it goes into the food and feed chain. Yeah, and they prefer non-GMO. But at the end of the day, it's again money. So when you have a plant in a country where at that year, at that stage, your production of rapeseeds is far less, and you're able to get GM rapeseeds, they start using that. The European policy is not really clear on those things. If Europe would say no, we are only allowing the non-GMO, it would be great, but they're not. So various countries have various rules in these matters.
So do you think there's a natural limit to the amount of GM that you'll be able to take in, or is it
I
not
can't say
limited?
that. I don't think it's limited. It just depends. It's a money thing. If it works in, yeah, we shift a little bit to the left, we go a little bit to the right, and that's basically how it's been done.
Okay, so on the money thing, as you probably be well aware that there's usually a spread in Australia between GM and non-GM, so non-GM trading at a premium. But we've seen that spread really come back this year because of the issues in Canada and the high demand. Do you think this is sort of going to be a farewell to the GM non-GM spread that we've enjoyed?
It won't be a thing of the past. It will always stay there. Like I said, in the whole chain, if you are a non-GMO product, there's always a bit of premium to be paid for. But I don't think the difference as it used to be that it's going to stay that big. It will grow closer together. That's what I expect.
Mm-hmm. So obviously it's biodiesel that's the driver in Europe. That's what's been that's our bread and butter, so to speak, or I should say bread and margarine, perhaps, with canola. But that's what's kept us going. And we obviously saw a large drop in the demand for biodiesel as a result of COVID.
You'll probably see it bounce back up a little bit again. You have to look a bit further than that. At the end of the day, diesel engines, for example, a lot of diesel engines are being refused in the center of towns, for example. If the engine is too old, you're not allowed to go into town. So let's say governments give us a little bit of a push away against diesel engines and electrical engines. Whether we like it or not, that shift is going to happen. It's going to go faster than you think. Imagine yourself, New York, 1902. You only see horses in the streets, and you go to the same place. You see a photo. 5 years later, it's only cars, and that transition to electrical cars you will see happen much quicker.
So, does that sort of hail the beginning of the end of canola exports to Europe for biodiesel? Will we see that?
It will have an effect. Yes,
it will. Yep. Okay. That's something we've heard both, Volvo and Mercedes give very, very strong commitments to move out of internal combustion engines. So we need to make hay while the sun shines on our canola exports to Europe, because potentially they may not be certainly as strong in 5 or certainly 10 years' time. Just moving on to canola quality, we get these messages from EU crushers and in fact Japanese crushers as well, that the oil content of Australian canola is too high, which is an unusual thing to complain about, because that's sort of what we strive for, but it does cause processing challenges, we hear. I'm just wondering, as someone in the middle, as a broker dealing with the buyers and the crushers in the European end, and whether this is a signal that you also get, or whether it's more of just a bargaining chip.
No, it's a bit of a bargaining chip as well, but it's also true. Imagine yourself, you have a factory. Your crop is let's say your crop is November, December. It gets in here, let's say January. The crushers use European rapeseeds, let's say, which has 40 or maybe 44%. Your product comes in, let's say it has 48, maybe even up to 50%. That does a lot to a machine. It is also the rape meal which comes out. That has to be a very consistent factor as well. So yes, you're happy with more oil, but the end product, the rape meal, has a different components, and they sell that, of course, in futures. So you sell now, let's say you sell your rape meal now for November, December, Jan, or Feb, April, and in the meantime, the same crusher buys, let's say, Australian rape meal. It changes a little bit, and in average it takes about 2-3 weeks for a factory when you go from old crop to new crop, even in Europe, to reset things.
Right. Increasingly, we're seeing signals from the breeders that they're starting to breed for more protein meal, so get that balance back a little bit. Well, while a lot of the breeding's been towards oil, we're getting signals that because of the demand for human protein and out of canola meal, that swing will come back. So we might see that issue go away in due course. Just as we head towards the end, questions on sustainability. It's a big opportunity for Australia, and obviously we've been trading certified sustainable canola into Europe for over a decade now, and all credit to CBH for leading the charge on this. But we're starting to see the requirements for certification. We use the ISCC scheme throughout most of Australia, and the requirements are tightening. And obviously RED II, the Renewable Energy Directive 2, has added some more screws, I guess, to tighten on it. And then we've also got things like the chemical restrictions that apply to ISCC Plus. So I'm wondering, it's starting to impact, I guess, the way we farm and the chemicals that we can use and the paperwork that we have to have behind it. And I'm just wondering if you've got any sense whether this is an ongoing trend. It's just going to get harder and harder to meet the sustainability requirements. Will they just keep pushing up?
Look, I wanted to bring your farmers a better message, but I think it's going to be harder and harder. I'm sorry, it's just European law. It's just people get more strict. The environment, if you look on Van Leyen and her policy in Europe, we have to get cleaner, better, and so I'm afraid we'll see more restrictions. And it's a bit of a strange thing if you think about it. I mean, we're in the food industry and we can restrict ourselves as much as we can, but we still need the product. So there will come a balance here in Europe as well. Look, it's not going to continue forever. There will be a limit in what people can ask to do. On the other hand, it's also a signal to the chemical industry to find our ways into using chemicals, which blend in better.
Yeah, and I think the chemical companies are taking up that challenge as well to look at, certainly glyphosate alternatives, because that signal has been pretty strong, but also just generally with other chemicals that are more harmful and being targeted to look at options there. So excellent. And just as we come to wrap up, WA production, this year is looking like another record canola crop for WA. And just what do you think is the EU's ability to be able to absorb that sort of volume going into 2022?
Look, our harvest this year will be around, let's say, 16, 17 million, I would expect. The crushing, what we can do is around 23 million in Europe. So there's a gap, let's say, of 6 million. So factories also check, of course, what they can sell on rape oil, what they can sell on rape meal. So it doesn't mean that they're working full capacity. But in theory, we need to import, let's say, between 5 and 6 million tons. And I'm certain a large share of that will be fulfilled with Australian canola. I think on the other part, you have to think about, and that's going to be a challenge for Australia as well, is your freight market. Due to COVID, the freight industry is well, the word crazy is a bit much, but on the other end, it is getting a bit crazy. There's both bulk and containers. And that's the other thing. And once things normalize all worldwide with COVID, these freight things will normalize as well a little bit. So then the freight component in the costing is getting a bit more normal, and you're going to be more competitive again. So it's not only having a big crop, which is great, but getting it out of your country will be a challenge.
Well, that's been terrific, Rob. Thanks for your time this afternoon. It's been a great session and some really terrific insights into the European rape market that WA relies on so heavily. So enjoy the rest of your day. I know it's early morning for you, but really appreciate the time and effort joining us. Thanks very much.
Okay. Thank you very much, Nick, and good luck with all.